Hello and welcome to Stepping Out from the Top Team. I'm Oliver Johnston. I'm delighted today to be joined by Emma West. For the last 7 years, Emma has been a professional consultant and coach after 25 years in senior leadership roles with four of the FTSE 100 companies. And there she operated in HR and commercial. Emma's career has been international with stints in France, Russia, and the USA, and today she works with C suite executives and is an accredited Stepping Out coach. Emma, you're very welcome. Today's theme is to plan or not to plan. You know, many of the people watching today, Emma, will be senior executives who are thinking and planning their stepping out journey. So, first of all, how did they get to the exit door successfully and then on to the new adventures in their life? An interesting statistic is that if you have your 60th birthday today, you're statistically at least have a 50% at least a 50% chance of living to 90 plus. That's another third of your life. So the question to plan or not to plan is an important one. And so Emma, maybe over to you in terms of why is answering the question to plan or not to plan so important?
Thanks, Oliver, and great to be here. I think this point about to plan or not to plan comes up a lot when leaders are considering stepping out from the top team. They may have made the decision that, in principle, they want to step out, but they're not clear about when or how it's going to happen, or indeed what happens once they've stepped out. So there's a lot of things for someone to think about. And clients often leaders ask, how much planning should I do? How much planning do I need to do about this next phase of my life? And also, what happens if I get stuck? And that sense of not knowing where to start can be quite overwhelming for people. And I think this is a very natural place to be, and giving, I suppose, leaders confidence and to be comfortable that they'll get through that, and they will be able to get unstuck during the stepping out process. And it's probably the first time for many of them they've had to plan in this way and think in this way for a long time, because they may have had very successful and defined careers, and for some people it will be going right back to when they made decisions about university or what career they were going to go into, that they had such big questions to think about and plan for.
Thanks, Emma. And you have been through a stepping out process yourself, stepping out from a big senior career and then taking on a new and exciting career as a coach and a consultant. And I suppose the next question is, what, because you work with a lot of people who are going through this and you've been through it yourself, what hints and tips do you have about the question of to plan or not to plan?
Yes. So a really good place to start, I find, is with three key questions. So the first question to ask yourself is, what do I already know about the future? What is clear for me? And we may surprise ourselves with the answer to that. There may be more clarity than perhaps we thought. And some elements of the future plan may exist there. There may be those kernels of ideas there. And I think in reality, we're rarely starting with a blank piece of paper. So that's the first question to ask. What do I already know about the future? What is clear for me? And then that leads you to the second question, which is, what do I know that I definitely don't want to do next, that's not going to appear on my future plan? And just by taking things off the table, that can reduce the fog and sharpen the thinking. So that's the second question. And then the final question is about, what else do I want to know that's going to help me with this planning that I don't yet know? So what do I not know yet, but I want to know and need to work out? And this question helps you to identify the areas to focus on next. And you as you're going through this kind of process, I think you go in and out of the fog, if you like, as you move through your thinking and planning, and that's again bound to happen. And that's where a guide can be helpful to, help you work through that fog and come out the other side and have confidence that you will be able to take those steps and plan the next phases. And I was coaching a client recently, and the sense of relief for them was palpable when they realized that the future, yes, it wasn't 100% defined yet, but they had some clarity about some aspects of it that allowed them to take the thinking to the next stage and the planning. They weren't totally in the dark. So I'm also one of the other things to share is getting leaders to think about, and anyone listening to this, to think about what approaches have you taken before in your life when you've made big decisions and made big changes. What really worked for you? What stood you in good stead, and how can you use that to help you with this planning process as well? Because that can give you some confidence that, I have done something like this successfully before. I've used a tried and tested method that really works for me. And as we know, we're all unique. We all work in different ways. And for some of us, when we come back to this whole piece about planning things out, some people only need a very broad outline of where they think they're going to be going, some of the criteria that will help them to make choices as they move forward, and that's enough for them. Other people really want to have quite a defined and detailed plan as they go forward. And again, it's just working out what's going to work for you, and then with your stepping out guide and coach, working through that plan.
Thanks, Emma. I take from that that in answer to the question to plan or not to plan, it's very much a personal choice as to, first of all, what a plan means, and also to the extent that it's elastic or the extent that it's fixed or whatever. One thing that you and I have talked about, Emma, is the notion of creating guardrails for the future. And I wonder if you could just address that for a moment.
Yes, absolutely. So something I like to explore with leaders is the guardrails that are in place that may affect our decision making and our planning. So what I mean by that is for many of us, that there were clear guardrails that were in place during our career, during the sort of first phase of our career, if you like, that provided a framework in which we made career decisions. So some of those guardrails may have been set in place by our parents or our family. That might be expectations, aspirations, precedents that existed within the family about what we were going to do, our career, and so on. For some people, it's was people outside of their family who they respected and who influenced them. So that might be a teacher, a mentor, a professor at university who gave them those sort of guardrails. And then, for many of us, and myself included, when I was going through my career, there were some really clear guardrails that were established by the organization. Said, here's the career route you need to go to if you want to be a senior HR person. These are the roles, these are the levels, the grades, the promotions. And many professions and organizations had those clear guardrails. So, and then I think another aspect of the guardrails that may have been in place for many of our clients are those that come with their own family situation as their careers and their lives evolved. So there may be expectations about the lifestyle that the family want to live. That might be financial, it might be geographic, it might be taking into account what the spouse or partner is doing. So you can see that there are guardrails that have been in place for us throughout our sort of life that have impacted on the decisions we make and the planning we do. So I think it's really helpful to think about what those guardrails are. Are they real or are they imagined? Are they still true? And for some people, it could be really liberating to think that the guardrails aren't there anymore. Some of those things are no longer relevant, but perhaps we're still kind of making decisions based on those guardrails. So one really nice sort of liberating question might be, if there were no guardrails, what would I do? And just to see where that takes you in terms of your planning about what next. So that's the whole piece about guardrails and related to planning. And there's a really nice quote that I'd like to bring in now, just back to our whole bit about to plan or not to plan and choice, which is an Eisenhower quote, which perhaps many people might have heard before, but I think it's quite relevant in this context, which is, in preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. And that brings us, very, very pertinent to the end of our conversation today, because I think that inspirational idea of rethink the guardrails, imagine there weren't any, and see where that leads to. And also the sense of each of us have to decide what level of planning works for us. So thank you very much indeed. We will provide people with your details, contact details at the end. So if anyone would like to get in contact with you, then they'll be able to do that. So it only remains for me to say, Emma, thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 12 minutes.
Thank you, Oliver. Thanks very much.